Yes, and one more, Pursuing God's Heart from 1 Timothy, this time chapter 6, right at the end of the letter. And Paul speaking to Timothy, the younger man. I just love the purposefulness of this chapter. There's so many elements within it. He's talking, for example, in verse 6, godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing with these, we will be content. And then he goes on to warn about the dangers of loving money and making money your goal and kind of pouring your energy and your efforts into money and in the process wandering away from what matters. But verse 11, he says, but as for you, O man of God, flee these things. There's a purposefulness there. Because of your identity, because of who you belong to, pour your energy into that. Man of God, flee these things. And then he says, pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, steadfastness, gentleness, fight the good fight of the faith, take hold of the eternal life to which you were called and about which you made the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. He goes on to charge him to keep the commandment unstained. He goes on further down in verse 20 to say, O Timothy, guard the deposit entrusted to you. Avoid irreverent babble and contradictions of what is falsely called knowledge. I'm just gripped by that kind of language that's coming through here, in contrast to what we see so often. I was just chatting with the children the other evening, about how easy it is. The world is kind of at work to woo us into essentially doing nothing. We've gone from a world where, holiday or entertainment or leisure was a kind of a privilege, something that, a very small amount would kind of become too much. I suppose it's like the analogy of sweet things. In a healthy diet, you'd have your full meal with good food, whole food, and so on. And then at the end, just a little something sweet just to cap it off. And it doesn't take too much before the diet shifts and you end up kind of feasting on pure sugar, and it's not healthy. It's horrifically bad for you. And in the same way, our culture has gone from kind of leisure as a break, I'm just going to take a half an hour and do something, to becoming the goal of everything. And so for the younger generation now, but for all of us, there's this sort of binge watching attraction to just spend your time, just to burn your time away and to not really live for anything. And so I was encouraging my children, we were having this conversation, thinking about, okay, what can you do over the summer that is going to add some substance to who you are as a person? What can you do that's going to build your relationship with God or grow your skills or abilities, or, kind of make yourself a more rounded person in order to be able to give and bless others, learn a language, get fit or do something, but don't just entertain yourself. Don't just consume from the screen. Don't just let time pass, because there's such a lack of purposefulness in that. And ultimately, what do you want to be? Talking to them, saying, okay, think 10 years from now, what kind of a person do you want to be? And that's kind of what Paul's saying to Timothy here. God's got a hold of you. You've made a confession to live for him. Now go for it. Pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, steadfastness, gentleness. Flee the other stuff and proactively pursue this stuff. Guard it, keep it. There's a good fight of faith for us to be fighting. And so there's no sense in which Paul's telling Timothy to earn his salvation. He's saved. And therefore, consequently, it would make sense for him to just put all his energy into going after the stuff that matters. It's a good reminder. So easy to drift, so easy to grow complacent. But actually, Jesus is worth living for. Jesus is worth giving everything for, and ultimately worth dying for. And so, guard the deposit entrusted to you. Grace be with you.